Are you done? Are you just going to keep?
Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome to the Midlife Revolution. I'm your host, Megan Connor, and I am live in Arizona at the Maricopa County Courthouse. Now, I'm not actually at the courthouse now, but I am attending the proceedings where we had some pretty wild stuff happen today. Here is your full recap of everything that happened in the Lori Vallow Daybell trial. If you're just joining me for the first time, welcome to the channel. I am Megan Connor. I'm Lori Vallow Daybell's cousin. We spent time together, grew up together. She was a bridesmaid at my wedding, and I spent a lot of time around the Cox family when they lived in San Antonio for about 10 years. So I have a lot of insight into how Lori got to be the way she is. And so I'm here to explain to you why Lori's and how. Also, I listen to Lori so you don't have to. So if you're here for a recap because you can't watch the entire trial proceedings and you don't want to listen to somebody ask the most inane and stupid questions ever, I'm here for you. I attended court today. I was a little bit late because my flight was delayed. It's been a very big day. Let me recap a couple of the highlights real quick here at the beginning, and then we're going to dive deep and dig into it. First of all, this morning on the minute entries of the court docket, we saw that Lori was very busy over the weekend and on Monday, late at night, writing love letters to Judge Boreski and Judge Green, asking them to be recused and removed from the case. So a third judge had to come in and read those ridiculously written motions where she claimed that she was afraid of Judge Boreski. And of course, they were denied. We're going to go into those in detail. The next thing that happened is that Nick Balance of the FBI, who some of you have called Agent Smooth Voice, he took the stand. He is a cast data expert. Basically, your cell phone pings, your GPS data. That's what he was there for. He gave a very detailed description of how this data all works, which some people feel like they're bored to tears when they listen to it. Me personally, I'm actually really interested in how all of that works. So we're going to skip over some of the more technical aspects of it and just stick to the evidence that he presented. It was very compelling. Then, after Agent Balance's testimony was finished, Trina Kay rested for the state. She's all done. She's presented her case in chief. And wouldn't you know it, what happened next? Lori decided that even though she wanted to represent herself, she did not want to defend herself. She's going to present no witnesses. She's not going to testify. And she said to the judge that she was going to file a Rule 20 motion, which, as I understand it, and I've been slightly corrected here, so correct me again if I get it wrong, that is a motion that basically states to the court that the state has not presented enough evidence for a conviction, and she's going to ask the judge to dismiss the case. So that will now be 8 times that Lori has filed a motion to have the case dismissed. And of course, Judge Boreski denied her motion. But here's the thing also that I don't get. We were about to break for lunch, and the judge said, well, if you're going to do a Rule 20 motion, let's just do it now. And she said, can we do it after lunch, Your Honor? Because she loves to control everything about these proceedings. So he's like, oh, I guess so, fine. So he said, let's go ahead and finalize jury instructions. So we did that before lunch, and we're going to talk about those jury instructions a little bit. Then after lunch, Lori did do her sickly sweet voice for that Rule 20 motion, which was anyone, denied yet again. Then Lori wanted to make sure that we got in that letter from Tammy Lachik, which we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Then the jury came in, and the defense rested officially in front of the jury. Then Judge Boreski went over the jury instructions. We're going to dig into what some of these interpretations and definitions are. And then we had closing statements. And let me tell you, Trina K absolutely killed it today on this closing statement. It was just brilliant. I can't say enough good things about it. I was so excited and happy for everything that she pulled together. I made lots of notes about the most important moments, and we're going to revisit some of those tonight. When she was finished, I actually she finished her statement and then she said, "Thank you." And I literally wanted to start applauding. And I was like, oh, are we not clapping? I almost felt for a second like I was back in my Mormon church, because whenever I would sing in church or play something, there's no clapping after the performance. And it always feels a little bit awkward, especially as a performer who is used to performing on stages publicly where there's always applause. When you're performing in the Mormon church afterwards, there's no applause. And it always just felt a little awkward. That's how I felt after Trina K's statement, and nobody stood up and applauded. I think she needed a standing ovation. It was that good. Then, of course, Hoary, Shallow, Can't Spell, got up and gave her closing statement. And I have to say, I was infuriated for the majority of it. Throughout this process, I think what I've said the most is that Lori's disrespect for the victims and for the legal process and for the court and for the judge and for the prosecutor, her disrespect is what infuriates me more than anything. So today, it was difficult for me. There were several times when I had to put my head down and do some deep breathing. I'm one of those people that cannot hide my feelings. My face will tell you exactly what I'm feeling. If I don't say it, my face will. And so I had to look down because I was afraid of the jury seeing a reaction from me and having that bias them somehow. So I really just had to do some deep breathing there in my seat. And I said earlier, I felt sorry for the poor lady sitting next to me because my breathing was audible. Anyway, we'll talk some about Lori's closing statement, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to play it. We're going to put Lori on mute, which is where she deserves to be. And I will just go ahead and read the closed captions. So you don't have to listen to her ridiculous voice. The cool thing is that Lori is so rude and disrespectful that Trina K got angry. And I kind of like it when people like Trina K get angry, because you don't want to make her angry. She came back with the most absolutely fiery response. Her clapback was it's going to go down in history as one of the best clapbacks I've ever heard or seen. I was so excited and happy at the end of that one. I wanted to jump up and applaud for her again. But of course, we're in court. We're going to keep our decorum. There was one moment, and I don't know, here's the other thing. I don't know how much you guys could see of the PowerPoint presentation that she put on for the jury, but it was masterful. It did exactly what I thought that it would do, which is to connect all of the dots of all of the evidence and to make sure that the jury understood the story. And she even said near the beginning of her statement that, you know, we're going to present it in a way that's a lot more cohesive than what you heard in the courtroom. Oh, you couldn't see it. Dang. That's going to be a problem. A little bit, because I was thinking, as I was taking notes, I was thinking, oh, I'm going to show this later. But you couldn't see at all, because right behind, well, so Trina K is facing the jury, obviously. And so right here is a screen that would have shown the PowerPoint. So I was hoping that at least you would be able to see some of it. Okay, so you saw parts of it. Yeah. And McSpunky, I had goosebumps, honestly. My favorite moment of the final statement, after the one she gave after Hori got up and said her thing. My favorite part was when Trina K gave some brilliant statements, and then she flipped the page of her note-taking, and you could hear the page flip. I don't know if you guys could hear it, but in the courtroom, it was like, she was really, really upset. And it was amazing. So we're going to go over all of this, where you guys are going to get to see and hear it all. And also, I don't know how loud that gunshot was in the video for you guys, but okay, the first time that I heard it, obviously I was hearing it on YouTube, just like you guys were. Hearing it in the courtroom, it was even louder and more shocking. The other thing is that it's at the very end of a video that's a little over a minute long. So waiting for an entire minute to hear something, and then that gunshot goes off, many people in the gallery jumped. I jumped. It was shocking to hear how loud that was. And I'm sorry, are we 10 minutes in yet? Yes, we're exactly 10 minutes in. Lori's stupid ass response to all of that was like, oh, maybe if you're in a nicer car and you have the radio playing, you're not even going to hear the gunshot. Lori, that gun went off and shot the window, the door frame, the bullet hole where that landed was less than 6 inches from Brandon's head. He effing heard it, okay? So shut up. And the thing that I love the most about Trina Kay's final statement is that she brought the snark so hard. And if I could see Lori's face at that point, I bet she would have been rolling her eyes or looking disgusted or something like that. But here's the thing that is putting a little spring in my step. She might have some argument about the aggravation phase. She might stipulate to it, but I think we might have heard the last words of Lori Vallow Daybell, because I don't think she gets to talk during the guilt phase when the verdict is read. So I have to backtrack a little bit because I think she has to verbally stipulate to the aggravation phase, but those might be the last words that we ever hear from Lori Vallow Daybell. And I can't wait. I'm so excited. So I'm starring a couple of your questions and comments, which I will get to. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for your support. You are the reason that I'm here doing this beautiful community of beautiful humans who care about justice and who also care about learning how to identify and defend against these manipulative tactics so that we don't have to deal with these people in our lives. I will talk a little bit later about some of the people that I talked to just after court let out, because here's the wild thing. After closing statements, jury instructions were read, then the jury went back to deliberate. We're officially on verdict watch at this moment. However, I went outside into the lobby. I greeted some friends. I said hi to Tosh, the juror who was on the case last time, who was here in court observing everything. Got to say thank you to her, got to say thank you to Trina Kay, and just greeted some of my friends in the media and things like that. The jury went home after about 15 minutes. So in my estimation, that was probably just enough time to choose a 4-person and take a quick vote and see if they were all on the same page. So I don't know if they've already kind of reached a verdict or had at least an agreement, or if there's another holdout like there kind of was last time. So my guess, speculation, is that they're going to come back tomorrow. They're coming back at 10 a.m. And I think they're probably going to come back tomorrow and deliberate, have a little lunch, make sure that they feel good about their verdict. And then I think after lunch, I think we're going to have a verdict. That's my prediction. It's very similar to what happened last time. I think the evidence is pretty straightforward, but there might be 1 or 2 people that aren't totally 100% convinced and want to go through some of the evidence again. I think once they do that, they're going to be good. They're going to be done. They're going to be ready to issue a verdict. So what day is it? It's Wednesday. My days are a little scrambled. I was up very early this morning. My flight was late. And so I was hoping to get to court right as, my flight was scheduled to get here right as court was beginning, or just a little before. So I thought I was going to have time to get to court on time, but I didn't. So I've been running back and forth a little bit. I'm a little discombobulated, but I just want to say thank you to all of you who sent Venmos or super stickers or whatever for the snack fund, because I did just now go to the grocery store to get some snacks, because one of the ways that I take care of myself is that I love myself enough to go to the store and get healthy snacks rather than relying on fast food when I'm traveling. 10 a.m. Phoenix time, so that would be 12 Central, and you can figure that out for yourself. I think Phoenix is on Pacific time at the moment because they don't do daylight savings. So thank you to all of you who have contributed to that. I did, several people were really generous donating things, so I'm all stocked up. I am planning to probably order some dinner in. Maybe after I get finished with this, I'll have some dinner. So I am well taken care of, and I just want to say thank you to all of you who are supporting me, whether it's that way or whether you're just here in the chat giving me positivity. I do see your comments go by, and I do appreciate, I can't acknowledge every single one, but I do appreciate so much the love and support that this community is giving me. It means a lot to me. It's helping me to heal and to process all of this. It is, I was talking with one of my cousins today, Rex's daughters. She was asking me if I had been to Lori's first trial. And what I said is, I just unplugged from everything, and I didn't even know if I wanted to know about the trial or if I wanted to just wait and hear the verdict and just read the news or something like that. So I didn't really dig in during that first trial. And there's a lot of stuff that I didn't know and that I missed and everything. And what I said to her was, if I had known how healing it was for me to hear all of the evidence, I definitely would have gone to that first trial in person. But I didn't. I thought it was going to re-traumatize me. And so now, thank you so much, Wendy, for the super sticker. So now that I know that my analytical brain wants to know all the facts, and especially coming from a family of origin where I was lied to about so many things my entire life, knowing the facts from actual evidence really helps me to process. And so, yes, for those of you who are asking, I am still going to cover cases after this. In fact, when I was talking with Brianna Whitney, if you guys remember, Brianna Whitney is the local journalist who interviewed Lori twice. That was a huge get for her. I'm really proud of her for being able to get that for her career. That's a huge deal. I know a lot of people don't want to give Lori a platform or a voice or any of that stuff, but I told her thank you, because it does help me, at least, and hopefully other people who know her. It helps us to understand where she's at now and where her brain is now. And it confirmed for me that she's still 100% in her delusion, and she still is not accepting responsibility for anything she's done. Thank you so much, Puzzle Pieces, for the super sticker. I appreciate you. It's always good to see you in chat. So I'm going to continue to cover these types of cases. Brianna Whitney clued me into one that's happening right now that she's doing another report on tomorrow, actually. There's a lot that I want to dig into. There's so much out there in the world at the intersection of narcissism and true crime and high demand religion. And even if one of those elements aren't present, it's something that I want to help people understand. And having grown up around narcissists my entire life and manipulators, I think I can help people if I continue to cover things like this. So that's what I'm going to do. Thank you, Virgie Hamilton, for the super sticker. So every Tuesday is going to be a True Crime Tuesday. I will go live and discuss whatever cases are out there. Some of them I'll dig deep into. And yeah, I'm going to be attending some more trials because I think that's important. Thank you, Christina. I really appreciate that. You guys are so great. So for those of you who are just joining or who don't know me or who are at the channel for the first time, Lori Vallow Daybell is my cousin, and I have a lot of insights into how she got here this way. A lot of people are asking about Rex. Rex is my dad's younger brother. And Janice is Lori's mom. Janice is my dad's older sister. So that's how Lori and I are related. We're cousins. And then Rex is my uncle. He's always been one of my favorite uncles because he has a really great sense of humor. And I always enjoy talking with him. And there are some people who will know that there's a little tea where Rex has his own podcast. My cousin Adam goes on with him. There was some unpleasantness that happened. And some people have, expressed a little dismay that I still talk to Rex. But I will just tell you, Rex and I disagree about some things fundamentally. And I don't agree with some of the ways that he has handled some things. And, I've even, been upset about some of those things. And I've addressed them with him directly. I don't necessarily agree with his response. However, that doesn't mean that we can't treat each other with kindness and respect. So I'm just watching a little bit of chat go through. So I will just say, I know that some people use all caps because they might be visually impaired. And if that's the case, it's okay. But YouTube does not like all caps. They perceive it as yelling. And so unless you are visually impaired, please don't use all caps. The way to call attention to your questions and comments is to use several question marks or to use something that is colored, an emoji or something that will help call attention to it. So I appreciate that. This chat is normally just the most kind and welcoming space. I see very little negativity here. Usually we give each other a lot of grace. And if we disagree, we do so respectfully. And I so appreciate you beautiful humans doing it that way. So let's dig into this. So Agent Nick Balance from the FBI is a CAST data expert. And CAST data has an acronym, but basically it means that he can track cell phone GPS locations. And he went into great detail to explain how all of that works. Again, for me, it's super interesting. For other people, it is very, very boring. And so I don't want to go into all of that of how that data works and everything. If you really like it, you can go back and listen to Agent Balance. He has a lovely voice. You will enjoy it. But I really want to just note the few things that he pointed out that were super, super important. And also, I will say this too. We don't even need to talk about Lori's cross-examination of this agent because she asked the dumbest, most inane questions possible. And we just don't need to go through that. So I'm not even going to give her a platform for her inane cross-examination. We're just going to skip right over it because it doesn't matter. What matters are these two things. There's one thing that's really, really important. Lori was on the phone with Melanie Boudreaux Pulowski when she and Alex were both on their way to the Walmart in Idaho Falls. Now, let me just put this into context for you. Lori and Alex at the time were living in Rexburg. Idaho Falls is about 20 minutes away. Rexburg has its own Walmart. But these criminal masterminds decided to drive 20 minutes away to Walmart. Now, there was no, and this is important too, there was no location data coming from Alex Cox's phone. In other words, he had location services turned off. However, he was logged into his Google on his regular phone. And so Google registered location data for his phone anyway, even though he had location services turned off. Criminals will be watching this case to see how to criminal better. So because he was logged into his Gmail on his regular phone, Google recorded location data that Agent Balance was able to see. And that data showed that Alex and Lori traveled 20 minutes away to a Walmart where they purchased a burner phone, a track phone. They made the purchase in cash because They wanted to make sure that it couldn't be tied back to them through credit card records. But then Alex, being the criminal mastermind that he is, kept the receipt. And when his truck was searched, lo and behold, they found a receipt for that burner phone. So they could tell when it was activated. Now, when that burner phone was activated, here's what Agent Balance was able to see. Lori was on the phone with Melanie Boudreaux-Pulowski at this time. So they got her location data because she was connected to the cell tower at that time. And they knew that that was the phone call that was being made because of the Verizon cell phone records that they were able to review. At the same time, Alex was also in the Walmart. And his cell phone was recording that Google location data while they were purchasing the burner phone. And it was activated at that time. And then Alex immediately called Lori from the burner phone so that they would have each other's numbers. Just brilliant. Brilliant. So that's the really, really important thing from Agent Balance's testimony. And this all happened on September 25th of 2019, just a little while before the shooting that happened on October 2nd. So again, there was no location data coming from Alex Cox's regular cell phone, but it was connected to a cell tower at the same time because he was calling Lori. So there we go. Then the state rested and we had that Rule 20 motion. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play the Rule 20. Thank you so much, Honey's Maid. Lori definitely wishes she could resurrect Alex just to do away with him again. She probably does. She's probably really mad at him. But at the same time, like, it's really interesting that she hasn't thrown him under the bus this whole time. So I don't know what that's about. I don't want to talk about it right now. We have too many other things to go for. And I just realized that I forgot to go through Lori's handwritten motions, but I think that's something I'm going to save for tomorrow morning, because here's what we're going to do. We're going to be on verdict watch, so we're just waiting for the jury to come back. And what Judge Boreski told us is that he will give us about 25 minutes of notice. So when the jury informs him that they have a verdict, he's going to announce it to everybody and say, okay, 25 minutes from now, we will read the verdict. So he told everybody, if you want to be here for the verdict, you need to be less than 25 minutes away from the courthouse. I'm about a 3 to 5 minute walk away from the courthouse. So probably what I'm going to be doing is around 9 a.m. local time, which is an hour before the jury comes into court, I will be live streaming here. And we will go over those motions. We'll go over some of the other testimony. Maybe we'll have some highlight reels. I may have some people come in and, sit here with me and talk about the case a little bit until deliberations are finished. We'll just kind of see how it goes, because it could come back very quickly. We just don't know. So I'm going to share this screen with you. And it always bothers me how much they zoom in on the back of Lori's head, because we really don't want to see the back of Lori's head. But here again, I'm going to go back to, I'm going to skip forward because this is her cross-examination, I think, of Nick Balance. There is lunch break. And then we come back for the Rule 20 motion. And what I'm going to do is, what I like about Court TV is that they play the closed captioning. So I think I'm going to mute her and we're going to see, and I'm just going to read the closed captioning so we don't have to listen to her. So we're all waiting for the jury to come back in. There's Kay Woodcock. There's Brandon. This is Kay Woodcock's good friend over here. And there you see Mrs. Dumbbell herself.
Thank you. The jury is now present. Everyone can be seated. The defense has rested before lunch. I'll now turn to the state rested before lunch. I'll now turn to the defense.
The defense also rests, Your Honor.
All right. At this time, we're going to hand out the final jury instructions. My assistant will hand those to the jurors.
Okay, so actually, I think her Rule 20 came in before the jury, obviously, so that was my mistake.
With a Rule 20, Your Honor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I'm just going to give you a trigger warning before I play this. Am I showing it? Sorry, I forgot to check. I am showing it. Okay, good. I've got two different tabs going here. I'm just going to give you a trigger warning. This very first statement that she makes is so sickly sweet that it almost made me throw up in my mouth. So mute it for a second if you need to. I'm just going to let you listen to this very first statement that she makes, and then I will just read the closed captioning so you don't have to listen to her. All right, here we go.
The court must enter a judgment of acquittal on any offense charged.
Oh, wait. I'm so sorry. I have it on 1.25 speed. I want to put it on normal speed. Here we go.
With a Rule 20, Your Honor?
Yeah.
Okay. The court must enter a judgment of acquittal on any offense charged in an indictment if there.
Okay, so I just want to tell you that in order for me to get my voice to sound like that, I have to really change it a lot. So it's not just that she's trying to soften her voice, because listen, if I was talking to a child, for example, I might soften my voice a little bit and say, "Hey, are you doing okay? I just want to make sure that you're okay." But in order to get to Lori's level of voice gymnastics, I have to change my voice so much that it's like, this can't be anywhere close to what her regular voice sounds like. The only time we really hear Lori use her real regular voice is when she is questioning somebody that she wants to sound smart in front of. And then she talks like a normal human being for the most part. So earlier you testified to blah, 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 correct? That's the closest we're going to get. So that it's that baby voice that just drives me absolutely nuts. So now here's what we're going to do. We're going to just mute her because she doesn't deserve to speak. And I will just read the captions to you. There's no substantial evidence to support a conviction. Conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Oh, it's going too fast. It's going too fast for me to read it, you guys. I apologize. I'm going to slow it down just a bit, because I want to make sure that we get all of these words. This is really important to hear what she has to say here. Oh, I think I rewound it too much. Apologies, guys. Oh, and it looks like the closed captions didn't pick up all of the words. I don't want to listen to her. I really don't. Hang on a second. And I can't see chat now, so I apologize. I'm not going to be able to see your questions at the moment. Okay, so I don't know a way that I can mute it for you and not for me, but
On any offense charged.
okay, let me just try. On any offense charged with an indictment, if there's no substantial evidence to support a conviction, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, dang it, must prove that I agreed with another, in this case, my brother Alex Cox, that one or the other of us had engaged in conduct that equaled first-degree murder, and two, that I intended to promote or assist in the conduct. The closed captioning is not good, you guys. I feel bad. That has been presented. I don't know. It makes about as much sense as Lori normally does, but simply establishes that I have been seen on video placing items into a storage unit, a phone that is connected to me through an email, made phone calls during this time frame, and a Google search relating to Gilbert, Arizona. None of this is evidence established that I agreed with Alex Cox to engage in conduct that equals first-degree murder. The state has the burden of establishing all elements of an offense committed, and thus there is not substantial evidence for a conviction. And then the judge says, does the state want to respond? And we'll listen to Trina Kay because she actually makes sense.
In the light most favorable to the state, there is substantial evidence for a jury to find the defendant guilty of conspiring with Alex Cox to commit first-degree murder of Brandon Boudreaux. In this case, in determining if a conspiracy existed, the jury can look at the fact that the defendant went with Alex Cox to buy the burner phone, that she loaned her Jeep to him to be used, that she rented a storage unit, that she Googled how to remove the rear seat, that she hid the tire and seat, and that she created an alibi for her brother by having those two phones interact while he was in Gilbert, Arizona.
All right. The standard is whether a reasonable juror could find the defendant guilty, whether there's substantial evidence that a reasonable juror could find the defendant guilty. The state has presented a compelling case that Alex Cox traveled to Gilbert, Arizona and attempted to kill Mr. Boudreaux. There's other circumstantial evidence that establishes that the defendant was aware of Mr. Cox's plans and facilitated those plans and assisted in those plans in several different ways. It's ordered denying the motion for Rule 20. Anything else?
Oh, yeah.
All right, just confirming that the defendant doesn't intend on testifying or calling any witnesses.
Correct. I would like to again just admit the letter from Tammy. It
Shh.
was
Shh. Shh. Shut up, Lori. So she's talking about there's a letter from Tammy Lachik, who I guess Lori wanted to call Tammy as a witness. And there was a letter that came in, I think, saying that she wasn't able to appear. And so she wants to get that on the record, presumably for her appeal. So basically, the judge denied her Rule 20 motion. Then the jury comes in, the defense rests, they go through jury instructions. Now, beyond a reasonable doubt, yes, for those of you who are just joining us, the jury went out to deliberate, but they went home for the day after about 15 minutes. My guess is they just chose a 4-person and then went home for the day. So right now, nobody's deliberating. Right now, they're not going to come back until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, Phoenix time. And anyway, here were the things that stuck out to me the most. Sorry, guys. Text for my kids. So okay. So sorry, guys. So here are the things that stood out about the jury instructions. Beyond a reasonable doubt, and I don't think a lot of people really understand this, but beyond a reasonable doubt does not mean that the prosecution has to eliminate every single possibility about the defendant's guilt. It just requires the jury to be so convinced of the defendant's guilt that they would be willing to act upon that belief without any reservations. And then the prosecution sort of has to present the evidence that leaves there's really no other reasonable explanation for the crime. And, you know, a person is presumed innocent until they're proven to be guilty, but there's something specific in the instructions that says, you know, there are not many things in life that we know for certain, but you have to be convinced that the defendant actually committed the crime. You cannot, and here's the other thing too that stood out to me. The judge said, that you must not guess about a person's absence. I thought that was a really telling instruction because there's a lot of people that we have no idea why they're not here. At least the jury doesn't know why they're not here. They don't know why Charles Vallow isn't here. They don't know why Chad Daybell isn't here. They don't know why Melanie isn't here, but we'll get to that because Trina covers that in her closing, and it is masterful. I think that the jury voted guilty before going home, but that's just me. And also, this is one of the reasons why I like to be present for jury selection, because we get to actually hear them speak about their life and their experiences, their occupation, their family. You get to know a little bit about their level of intelligence, their level of maybe sarcasm, humor, if any of that comes in. And so I don't like that I didn't get to hear the jury really talk about those things. And so I don't really know what to say about the jurors who got picked to deliberate and how they might feel about things. But I will tell you this. I was looking for, when I'm looking at the jury, what I'm looking for is a level of intellectual engagement, and I'm looking for facial expressions and body language. When someone is leaning in, generally it means that they are interested in what they're hearing, they're engaged. When somebody is paying close attention, they watch a person as they move around. You can sort of tell sometimes there are little movements that a person will make when they're disengaged from something. For example, looking away, slouching, putting their hand like this. Those types of body language things are what I look for when I'm watching a jury. And it seemed to me that there were many intelligent people on the jury. It seemed to me that there were maybe a couple who were disengaged a little bit, who were bored or who were just sick of the whole thing. But I think I always try to look at the evidence objectively. Like if I was a juror and I didn't know anything else about this case, how would I vote? And honestly, I think by the time closing arguments were done, I think Trina K moved all of the evidence together in the best possible way. And we're going to see her fiery final statement that really just dismisses everything that Lori had to say. Trina K went over several things, but one of them was supposed defenses. All the stuff that Lori brought up in her opening statement where she said shooting maybe not even didn't even happen. And, why should I care what my brother does with my Jeep? Trina K listed visually all of those things for the jurors. And I really don't think a reasonable person could have listened to those two closing statements from Trina K and come to another conclusion. I really don't. I really think she got it in there. And also earlier in the live, and some of you have brought all of this up to me, that the motive might be a problem. Like, what's Lori's motive? Well, Trina K addressed some of that, but also she addressed the fact that the jury instructions don't include anything about motive. There's nothing about motive in there. So we're going to talk about all of that. The other thing was the mere presence argument. It was important to Lori to get that in there. Judge said the mere presence of someone at a crime scene doesn't mean that they participated. So the state has the burden to prove that they participated. So they also addressed the fact that there doesn't have to be a formal meeting or a verbal agreement between two people in order to prove conspiracy. And it was at this moment that I really was thinking, guys, I've said this before, it's one thing to watch all of this happen on YouTube and to be removed for it. It's quite another thing to be sitting in the courtroom with someone who survived an attempt on their life. Brandon is lucky to be alive. I'm so grateful that he is alive, but the fact that they came so close to completing this act is incredibly scary. And the weight and the heaviness of that is really awful. The other part I want to point out is that there's a very real set of circumstances that leads to what I call betrayal trauma. It's a real thing. There's also survivor's guilt, as you're mentioning here in the chat. But betrayal trauma, thinking about the person that you were married to for over 10 years, you have 4 children with this person. and they decide to engage in acts that are going to lead to your death. There is a huge amount of betrayal trauma that happens when you come to the realization that someone has engaged in a methodical plot to kill you. It's really, really awful. And it's hard to overcome. It's hard to ever trust people again. It's hard to ever have a relationship again. I'm so happy that Brandon has a happy marriage and that, he seems to have a really happy life. I'm so grateful for that, because a lot of people who go through this kind of betrayal are never really able to fully commit to a relationship again. And it's really, really difficult. Also, I want to point out that Brandon Boudreaux, 2 things about Brandon Boudreaux that if you don't know, you need to know. First of all, he was the first person that testified in Lori Vallow Daybell's first trial, the very first one. And the second thing I want you to know, if you don't already, is that Brandon Boudreaux offered to identify the remains of J.J. Vallow so that Kay and Larry didn't have to do it. That to me makes him a hero in my book. He's not just a survivor. He is an amazing human being with so much kindness and so much love and compassion for other people. And that is one of the things that makes this entire plot so much worse. You're right. Kay was first in Lori's trial. Brandon was first in Chad's trial. Thank you, Cass, for this super sticker. I love your name. I have a dear friend named Cass, and a daughter. Anyway, it made me think about what are the elements that would need to be proved for someone to be charged as an accomplice or an accessory. And they did go through the elements of the charge for first-degree murder. And then Trina did a great job of bringing that around in her closing. There were 3 things that she said she was going to do. She said, first, I'm going to tie together all this evidence in a way that you can understand it very well. Second, I'm going to talk about the alleged defenses, what she said, so-called defenses. Second, she went through the jury instructions and what that specifically means for the job that they have to do. And then finally, the so-called defenses that Lori put up and how she was going to refute those. So there are a couple of places that I want to play for you of what Trina Kay went through. And I do have to be on Web Sleuths a little bit later. Well, I don't have to be, but I've been invited to go stop by. So I'm just trying to think about time zones and making sure that my timing is okay. So I'm going to keep checking in on that. Now, I was in the courtroom, and so I don't know the exact timestamps on these. And I'm going to go ahead and share this before I forget to do that. And I apologize that I won't be able to see your questions in the chat. I have starred some things for the end, but hold your questions for just a few minutes while we go through Trina Kay's masterful closing statement. So after lunch, so this is where lunchtime ended at 3:11. So I have to add 3:11 to everything. Okay, well, that doesn't work because she's clearly already on her closing statement here. And then Lori does hers. Okay, so that's not going to work. I wonder what will work here. Okay, I get it. We started at 1:43 p.m. Okay. Look at that, just absolute boss of a woman. She clearly knows exactly who she is and exactly who Lori Daybell is. She's waiting for her PowerPoint to be brought up. Just a badass right there. And also compassionate and kind. Amazing.
Who would want to kill you? That is a question that Officer Mary Ann Robb asked Brandon when she first arrived. That's a question that Detective Pillar asked Brandon when he spoke with him. Brandon Boudreaux gave the exact same answer to both of these officers. He gave them two names. Lori Vallow, the woman seated over here, and Alexander Cox. He told them that he believed his shooting had something to do with an incident that occurred in Chandler in July of 2019, a couple months before this. He pointed them to that. He told them that Lori Vallow had lived in Texas and that the Jeep used in this shooting was from Texas. And then he told them what happened, how he had come home that morning. This Jeep was parked unusually close to his driveway, waiting. That he noticed there was no tire on the back, that he noticed that Texas license plate, that it was a two-door Wrangler, and then he noticed that window go up. He saw the rifle come out. He saw what he believed was a silencer at the end, and then he heard and saw that bullet that hit the frame of his car, shattering the window right near his ear, causing that loud bang that he heard when that struck right near his head, mere inches away from him. Brandon drove off and called 911, actually panting in panic from what he had just experienced. This defendant's co-conspirator also drove off to try to escape, immediately calling this defendant's soon-to-be husband, Chad Daybell, and Googling a way to get back to Idaho Falls, sort of through back roads. The names that Brandon Boudreaux gave the police were correct, but Brandon had no idea of the amount of planning that had gone on leading up to this October 2nd shooting. As you've seen and heard in this trial.
Oh, so this is where Trina says that she is going to do these three things. She's going to talk about, she's going to tie everything together. She's going to talk about the so-called, or the so-called defenses, and then the jury instructions. I think I mixed up the order of that again, but basically you get it. So I want to see, I don't know what you guys were able to see, but I want to fast forward just a little bit and see if you guys were able to see anything at all.
She didn't respond. Then you heard about that July 11th, 2019 incident in Chandler, Arizona. The one that Brandon, both to Officer Robb and to Detective Pillar, said, this has to do
Okay,
with
so
this
some
incident.
of it.
What you learned from Detective Duncan, who came here, was that on July 11th, there was an incident. Lori Vallow was there. It was at her house, and Alex Cox was there. In her garage was that 2018 Jeep Wrangler with the Texas plates LWD 0997. And you learned that Alex Cox has his own vehicle. He doesn't need to borrow his sister's. He can drive.
I think that was a powerful moment where she showed that he had his own vehicle. It was right there. He did not need to borrow his sister's. And this is where I was thinking about motive. So just before this, Trina K was talking about the fact that Lori Vallow Daybell was the one that started it when on, what was it, June 25th, she put the idea into Melanie's head that Brandon was hacking into her computer and that he was trying to get Lori's temple recommend taken away, which is a big deal in the Mormon faith, and that Brandon was gay. So this was Lori meddling in their marriage. She was the one who started this whole thing rolling. So she made a big deal about pointing that out. And then she frequently referred in this closing statement to Lori as Melanie's mom. She brought up the point that Melanie really relied on Lori and saw her as a mother figure. And she kept referring to that over and over as Lori being Melanie's mom. And I think that was a good way to present it to the jury, to say, like, Lori was a very, very important figure in Melanie's life. Melanie stood to benefit from Brandon's death. And Lori was the one that got Melanie stirred up about all of this stuff. So that was really important. Then she brought up the fact that Melanie Boudreaux Pulowski, flew to Rexburg to see Lori on September 26th. And she came back on the 29th. So she knew that they were going to exchange the kids on October 2nd. That was the plan that was done. So she knew that there was going to be this moment of exchange, and that's why they set it up to happen on that day. Now, this is a pattern. I've pointed this out before with Lori, because when was Joe Ryan attacked by Alex Cox? During a custody exchange. They exchanged kids. Joe dropped off Tylee for Lori to pick up. Lori knew he was going to be there. Alex Cox was also there. Just after Joe Ryan dropped off Tylee, that's when he was attacked. So this is one of those things that is a pattern with Lori. And I don't know if anybody else knows that or has pointed it out, but I think it's a really important point. They knew where Brandon was going to be because he cared so much about his kids. And this is what's so diabolical about it for me, that just makes me so angry. And this is why I want to cover the Jared Bridegan case, because it was the same thing. Jared Bridegan dropped off his children with his ex-wife, and they knew that he would be going directly from there home. And that's when they ambushed him and shot him with his child watching in the back seat. This diabolical thing where they know how compassionate and kind a person is, and so they know that they love their kids and that's where they're going to be. Anyway, it's a rabbit hole for another time, but that's why that exchange, that pattern is important to notice. And now we have a little bit of Trina K. Stark, which I absolutely love. So this was 2 more minutes and then 9 minutes after that. Okay. Let's try this and see if it works.
She has his phone.
Oh, sorry.
She's
Forgot that I was not sharing, guys.
giving him her Jeep, and she is helping him make it more comfortable so he can lie in wait in the back. They had to remove the tire, and they had to remove that back seat. We know that sometime that evening, Alex Cox leaves Idaho and moves towards Gilbert. We heard from Detective Pillar that there was an
I think I
LDR
missed
ready
it.
for that.
There was a moment when she was very complimentary of Lori and Alex's strategy, and I want to make sure that I get it. So I think it might be back a little farther.
She has his phone.
Just right before this, actually.
Department. And it stays there or with this defendant until he returns on the 3rd. We know that at about 5:15, Lori Vallow searches how to remove the back.
Okay, so shoot, guys. I'm sorry that I've got these timestamps wrong, because since I was in court, I was noting the actual time in court and thinking that would correspond a little bit with this feed, but I'm a little bit off. I apologize, guys. Thanks for your patience.
Of this defendant starting the giant alibi defense that she does. Why would anyone ever take someone's cell phone and carry it around with them? Why would you take someone's cell phone and do that? Why would you make phone calls between each other than to ensure that it looks like Alex Cox is still in Idaho? They think he has a burner phone. No one will even know. Great idea, other than we know he hooked it up to his Google account.
Great idea. No one's ever going to know. And at this time, I was like, who's going to know? How are they going to know? They're never going to know. That's exactly what these guys were thinking, is that nobody's ever going to know. And yet they were just really horribly wrong because they don't realize how these kind of things work. I'm going to note the time here so that I can try to calculate a little bit better about the timestamps for the things I want to cover. So at one point, I don't know if you guys heard this, and maybe you can tell me, because I don't want to try to find the exact place, but there was a loud noise, kind of a bang that happened in the courtroom. And I don't know if you guys were able to hear it or not, but I looked over, and what happened is that the MCSO deputy that was sitting over on the side, there's always a deputy over there because they want to have somebody in the courtroom at all times. There's a loud bang. He dropped something. I think what he dropped was the clicker for this for the shock belt. I don't know if that's exactly true, but it wasn't like his cell phone or something, because he then went and picked it up. I also noticed this. There was an exchange of, it was like somebody was coming on to shift and somebody else was leaving shift, one of the MCSO officers. So an officer came into the courtroom, walked over to the guy that's sitting there next to Lori's door, and they did exchange something in their hands. And I'm betting it was the remote for the stun belt. I can't think of anything else they would have been passing from hand to hand. I can't imagine if it had gone off. That would have been just hilarious if that actually happened. So I'm glad to hear that you guys actually heard that on the feed in the courtroom today. I thought that was really funny. Where am I now with my notes here? So I want to try to get through this. There's a lot that's really, really important. So on October 1st, Alex's burner phone calls Chad Daybell, and Trina Kay says, "This defendant's husband." And I was like, yes, thank you so much for bringing that up and making sure that that really happened, or that they tied that together. And then that's 3:48. Minutes, and that's 3 more minutes. Okay, so I'm trying to get the timestamps right, guys, so that I don't waste your time. Let's try this and see if that works.
As much as the defendant wants to tell you about colors or whatever else, her Jeep was here in Mesa on October 1st of 2019. We can just stop pretending that didn't happen. We know.
Yes, thank you. She said, no matter how much this defendant wants to talk about colors and whatever, let's stop pretending this didn't happen. I agree. I couldn't agree more. Now, I'm going to do a quick search really quickly here, guys, because I seem to remember this little detail. Power Road, I think it was in Mesa, Arizona, and that's where Alex stopped to eat a potato burrito. And when I heard that come in, I was like, oh no, where's Chad? Is he here? It was the Favorito restaurant. So I'm going to try to find that. Oh, it was Los Favoritos Taco Shop, Power Road, Mesa, Arizona. And then he Googled another address on Power Road. And I seem to remember somebody mentioning that he stopped at the Gilbert Arizona temple. And I want to see if that's actually the case or not. And this is one of the things I was trying to get done before I went live, and I just ran out of time. So instead, I'm going to try. Yep. Indeedy, it absolutely was a chapel. Okay, let me share this. Let me share this screen with you so that you can see. Can you see what I see? Sorry, I don't normally sing on my live streams, and I probably should not do that. Let me share this screen instead. So if you look up Power Road in Arizona, this is what comes up. It is a chapel of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I'm going to ask for, hang on one second. I have to put this away for just a second. I'll come right back to it, I promise. If you ask for directions from this chapel to the Los Favoritos taco shop, it is about 3.7 miles away. And Trina K did not mention this specifically by name, but I'm going to tell you why this is significant. Look at the distance here. The bottom destination down here, this down here is where the chapel is. And this destination up here is where the taco shop is. The reason this is significant is because she said, we have a receipt, and I showed this to you the other day, the receipt where he ate at Los Favoritos. He had a potato burrito, which I don't even know what that is. It sounds gross. I know what a potato, egg, and cheese taco is. If he ate that, then okay, whatever. Anyway, he Googled another address on Power Road, and I seemed to remember somewhere in the back of my mind, I was like, I seem to remember that he had visited a church or a temple in Mesa before he went to Brandon's house, and sure enough, he did. And this is it. Let me see if I can zoom in. This right here is the LDS chapel right there. Why is that significant? Well, I will tell you why. Because every LDS church or temple used to be had the same Wi-Fi password. So that means that Alex knew, as many of us do, that you can go to the parking lot of any LDS chapel or temple and connect to the Wi-Fi with the same password no matter where you are. And Alex knew that. Do you remember that his car was in the parking lot, or his device was in the parking lot of the LDS chapel near Chad Daybell's house the night that Tammy was killed? Why? Because he could connect to the Wi-Fi and look up. At the time, I believe he was looking at pornography. So just in case you ever need free Wi-Fi and you don't mind borrowing it from a corporation that has over $350 billion in assets, the password is this: Pioneer 47 exclamation mark, but only one exclamation mark. Capital P, Pioneer 47. That's because 1847 is the year that Brigham Young landed in Salt Lake with the first group of LDS pioneers who crossed the plains. So there you go. It's a little fun fact from me to you. Not all of the LDS chapels and temples have that still, but enough of them do that if you needed free Wi-Fi, you could probably get it at that point. So I just wanted to drop that little thing for you guys. Honestly, I have to say, like, I hate that this is true, but the number of people who have engaged in activities in a vehicle, in a church parking lot, not just LDS churches, but anywhere, yeah, it's awful. So anyway, Mormon secrets, you're welcome. I bet you didn't have this on your bingo card for today, but this is what we're talking about. Every time Trina K was like, he Googled another address on Power Road. And I was like, isn't she going to tell people what that was about? So Amor says, I assume some of the investigators knew about Wi-Fi wouldn't the church notice prawn use or have a firewall somehow? Well, that's the funny thing, is that they apparently didn't. I don't know. And the thing is, I found out about this because I was teaching gospel doctrine back in, 2015, 16 time period. And I needed the Wi-Fi password so I could access the online manual for the teaching that I was doing. And the bishop told me the password. And then when I was visiting my sister in Utah, I was like, hey, do you have the Wi-Fi password for here so that I can get on whatever? It was the same password. I was like, is it the same everywhere? It blew my mind when I found that out. So there's a little nugget you probably don't know about. Just one of those things. Okay. All right. Then the next important thing to note is that Alex's phone was with Lori Vallow when she rented the storage unit, and Alex was already in Arizona at that point. Here's another thing that I did not put together that's really important to mention. I'm going to say it now, even though it's a little out of order from when I found it out or thought about it. Oh my goodness. The church has $250 million, but they can only afford one password. That's timeless. I love it. Thank you, Sarah, the domestic goddess, for this. Have you watched American Primeval? Definitely a different view of old Brigham Young and his militia. Yes, I should say I did not watch it because people told me that it was nothing like the actual story of the Mountain Meadows Massacre. I did a whole episode on the Mountain Meadows Massacre. I'm sorry. On my channel. The real story of it is very different than what happened on American Primeval. So thank you for this. Teresa Carl says the Wi-Fi and password was changed February 2020, but I have heard from people since I announced this the first time that it does work in some places still. So not every place has changed it. So there's that little nugget out there. If you want a deep dive on the Mountain Meadows Massacre, I have an interview on my channel with Barbara Jones Brown, who wrote a book about it that is fabulous. I highly recommend it. So getting back to this case, though, Alex's phone is with Lori when she rents the storage unit in Arizona. Okay, so she rented that storage unit on October 1st of 2019. Now, she, at the time, all she brought in there was some bins with belongings of Tylee and JJ, photographs, some blankets with their pictures on it, some of those things. Mike Petty, you are always here with the snark and the humor, and I love it. Thank you. This is terrible security. I agree 100%. I'm glad that they finally decided to change some of these. But throughout these crimes, and maybe this is the reason that they changed it, throughout these crimes, Alex was visiting church sites and temple sites, and so were Lori and Chad. Anyway, I'm gonna move on. Lori rented the storage unit on October 1st. She just put Tylee and JJ's belongings in there. That was it. The crime was committed, allegedly, since we don't have a verdict yet, on October 2nd. It wasn't until after Alex failed at this attempt that they brought the tire and the bench of the backseat of the car into the storage unit. So this whole time I was going, why would they rent a storage unit if they had so much space in their garage? Well, I thought at the time I was positing, well, they want any evidence of any crimes to be far away from them. Well, the reality is they got rid of Tylee and JJ's stuff because they didn't want to be reminded of those children, which is horrible and despicable. But Alex failed this attempt early in the morning on October 2nd. It wasn't until after 1:30 in the afternoon that Chad and Lori showed up at the storage unit to put the tire and the back seat in there. So they knew Alex had failed. They knew Brandon had survived, and they were Googling this incident because they wanted to know, how much does law enforcement know? And the last thing that they wanted was for law enforcement to come to their house with a search warrant for the garage and find the Jeep or find the tire or find the back seat. I didn't realize that until Trina put this together for me today. So that's why I'm so grateful for exactly how she lined this out today. Then she did a great timeline of the day of. During the fake call, Lori put Alex's phone in Alex's unit 107 on Pioneer Road. Lori's unit was 175. I had some confusion about this earlier. I'm still working through it. I'll do another video on it. The attempt on Tammy was just a few days after this, the first attempt on Tammy. Then Lori, here's what I think happened based on the timeline and the cast data that Agent Balance presented today. I believe this is what happened. I think that Lori placed Alex's cell phone in his apartment. I think she then went to her apartment. No, actually, I have this backwards. I think what she did is she left her cell phone in her apartment. I think she went and placed Alex's cell phone in his apartment and hit the call button to call her. Then I think she went back to her apartment, or maybe she hung around for 24 minutes and hit the hang up and then went back to hers. Or she could have gone back to her apartment, hit the hang up, and then gone back to Alex's to collect the phone, or maybe she left it there. But anyway, the thing is, she specifically made sure that the phones were in separate apartments. I originally thought they were in the same apartment, but they were using the same cell tower. So yeah, it was kind of this moment where I was like, the calls are coming from inside the same house, but they did come from separate houses. But it would have been really easy for Lori to just walk back and forth between the apartments. They were close enough. I've been there. And so I can tell you it's not that far of a walk from one unit to the other. And I think you're right. Yes, Rosemary Romero, the attempt on Tammy was October 5th. So Alex was very freaking busy during this time. And it makes me sick because the same day that Alex left JJ's remains on Chad Daybell's property, the same day he went to have the window tint done on the Jeep. The same day. That was September 23rd, early in the morning of September 23rd. On September 26th, Melanice flew into Idaho. She left on the 29th. On the 30th, September 30th, early in the morning, late in the afternoon of the 30th or early in the morning of the 1st is when Alex left Rexburg. He was in Arizona by the early morning hours of October 1st, and then he stayed the night there, and he was there for the shooting. He immediately left to go back to Rexburg. He was back in Rexburg by somewhere around 8 p.m. on October 2nd, and then October 5th was the attempt on Tammy. They were on a mission to get this stuff done. Then Melanie Pulowski called Detective Pillar on the 14th of October to talk to him about a custody issue, and he advised her that she needed to have a court order. That was a thing for the family courts. It wasn't something he was going to get involved in. That same day, she went to her in-laws' house and was trespassed from that location. The next day, she went back again with Alex, who had a weapon in his van, and she was arrested that night. This is the timeline of this, you guys, is absolutely nuts. Anyway, back to Trina Kay's closing statements. 20 minutes before the shooting on the day on October 2nd, 20 minutes before the shooting, Melanie Pulowski called Lori Vallow Daybell. So the custody exchange had already taken place. Brandon, though, went to the gym, and nobody knew that he was going to go to the gym right after that custody exchange. Okay, maybe it was the 9th of October. Still, they were busy. Alex was going to the shooting range, practicing during this time. So they exchange kids. Brandon drops off their youngest child with Melanie. And then he goes to the gym, and nobody knew that he was going to go to the gym. They all thought he was going to go straight home. So there was this waiting time. And 20 minutes before the shooting happened, Melanie called Lori Vallow. And I'm sure they were kind of like, has anything happened? Have you heard anything? Because they were expecting this all to go down pretty quickly. But it was almost 2 hours after the exchange that Brandon finally came home. And I think that contributed to Alex being a little bit off guard of not knowing exactly when he was going to come around. Again, that shot was very, very loud in the courtroom. I'm not going to play it again because I know it's been triggering for somebody, but I do want to point out that it was very jarring. A lot of people jumped. It was very scary. Then yes, that was when I noted that the storage of the tire and the seat happened at 1:28 p.m. on October 2nd, just hours after the shooting. They didn't take that tire and that bench to the storage unit until after the attempt failed. They were clearly hiding it. Can you do an episode about everything we learned about Melanie's involvement from the trial? Possibly, yeah, I could. Running Bear says, I saw an old live with your dad earlier. Not my dad, probably my uncle, though. Probably my Uncle Rex. Yeah, and Alex was there that entire time with the Jeep just running, just sitting there with it idling. And that's why the neighbor noticed it. It was super weird for that Jeep to be idling that entire time on the street, parked nose to nose with the van. Then Trina K, should point this out. The Jeep was back in Idaho by 4 p.m. the next day on the 2nd. Couldn't have been that soon because it's like a 15-hour drive. Yeah, 4 p.m. the next day. But then on October 2nd, the day of the shooting, Lori and Alex were both Googling the news reports of someone shot in Arizona. They wanted to know what law enforcement knew. That's what I'm positing. Then she talked about jury instructions and the burden of proof and reasonable doubt. And then she had some really good snark. So let me see if I can figure out where this is going to be. So that was at 3:41. So you have to hour and 41. So it's going to be about 4. Okay. Sorry, guys, doing math in my head. I'm going to go ahead and share with you again. Oops, wrong tab. This tab. Where Trina K brings the snark against Lori's ridiculous defense that maybe some hairspray caused the gunshot residue.
You've heard a lot about the color of this Jeep. Even when we look at photos of the exact same Jeep here.
I'm so glad she did this.
You have the DEA one that looks almost silver, brown, I don't know. You have an upper one from Chandler, looks a different gray with a dark gray, and then you have the one from Dan Moss that looks more greeny colored. What do we all know? They all have the same license plate on them. They're all this defendant's Jeep. So when we're talking about color, that's just everyone's perspective. What do we know in actuality? That Brandon's Tesla was shot by a large round, that it hit the corner of that glass that went up into the frame of his vehicle, that it left a divot in the glass, and that somehow the police, in trying to search a giant block radius, were not able to recover those pieces of the projectile. We only have a few fragments of it. But everyone who has worked these scenes knows that's a bullet hole, and those were projectile fragments. And that was a gun that Brandon saw. And that's a shot that he heard. Immediately after hitting Brandon,
Okay, I'm
Alex
going to go
Cox
back just a little
HR.
bit because I missed the part that was super snarky, but that was good. I'm glad we listened to that because she addressed this whole ridiculous issue of the different colors of everything. Oh, that's the shot. That's the gunshot. Okay. So if that was the gunshot, it was 208. So add 7. Let's try that. See if that
Of
works.
the crime charged, you must find her guilty. When we talk about reasonable doubt and that burden of proof, I want to start with what it isn't. Proof beyond all reasonable doubt is not proof beyond all doubt. It's not proof beyond all possible doubt. It's proof beyond any reasonable doubt. And I'll give an example. When Kyle Mueller was on the stand and he was questioned about gunshot residue, he was asked, for instance, if a bunch of hairspray could cause the GSR in the car. And he said, well, maybe like one of the particles, but not all three. So maybe if all they had found, possibly you could say that was a doubt, but is it a reasonable doubt that hairspray caused the GSR in the car? No. So let's talk about direct and circumstantial evidence.
Okay, so this is actually a really good point. I loved that she said a bunch of hairspray caused possibly the GSR. Well, one of the elements, but not all 3. And we know Lori knows all 3 of the elements because she looked it up. She told us. Anyway, I'm getting there, guys. We're almost done. Some really important stuff here. Trina K makes this brilliant analogy between direct and circumstantial evidence. And I love this. She did this during the last trial for the last jury as well. And it was great because the state makes no distinction between direct and circumstantial evidence. They are equally as important. And what she says is, if you're sitting on a beach and someone walks past and you see their footprints in the sand and somebody comes up and says, hey, did someone walk by? You say, yeah, I saw them. That's direct evidence. But if you're sitting on the same beach and you close your eyes for 5 minutes and someone walks by and then you open your eyes and someone says, hey, did someone walk by? Then you can say, yeah, they must have because there are these footprints pointing that direction. That's circumstantial evidence. So it's evidence that is enough that you could come to this conclusion. And I love that analogy that she gives to the jury so that they understand that this evidence where you come to your own conclusion based on what you've seen is just as important as actually seeing it. I think that's really, really great that she does that. The elements of a conspiracy. You have to agree or assist or promote it. And then they went to talk about the quote unquote defenses. And this was the part that I was wishing that you guys could see, because what she did is she addressed each of the defendants' claims. For example, there was no shooting, and that's up on the screen. And then right next to it, there's like 10 different points of evidence that we've already covered that prove that a shooting actually did take place. Then no, it wasn't at the beginning of today. Sorry, Jody Jackson, I just saw this out of the corner of my eye. The gunshot sound was played by Trina K right before that moment that I just played in court. I thought it was important to play it again. It was really, really important. So she did that during her closing. And it was right after she went through the timeline of everything that happened on the day of the shooting and just before she talks about the jury instructions. So in the video, the part that I just played right before the beach analogy, we're at timestamp 4 hours and 7 minutes on my live stream. If you go back about 4 or 5 minutes, So if you go back to about 4:02-ish, that's when they play the gunshot. And that's on my day 5 live stream if you want to hear it. I just don't want to play it again because I know it was triggering for a lot of people. It was for me, for sure. So she went through this whole thing. There was no shooting. Well, here's all the evidence there was a shooting. Let's stop pretending this didn't happen. There was a bullet hole in the Tesla. The glass, it nicked the glass. The glass shattered. We found bullet fragments. We know there was a shooting. Then maybe Melanie Boudreaux-Pulowski did it. Then they went through all of these ways in which Lori actually was the one that participated and agreed with Alex to do it. Then this defense of, I'm not responsible for what Alex did with my Jeep. Then she went through all of the things that focused on Lori Vallow's. And this was brilliant. I really wish that you guys could see it because she put it in first person language on the screen. And it looks like it doesn't show.
And she kept it with her.
I'm so sad about that because basically what she did is she said, my brother had his own car, but I gave him my Jeep. I allowed him to get tint on my already tinted windows. I allowed him to borrow my Jeep and take it to Arizona. I hung on to his cell phone. I took the cell phone to his apartment and then I called my phone from that phone. It was all done in the first person. So it was basically showing the jury, these are all the things that Lori did. Now, what is noticeably absent from all of this, from the jury instructions and from everything, from the burden of proof? Motive. Nowhere in any part of the jury instructions was motive mentioned at all. Because you don't have to prove motive in order to find someone guilty of conspiracy. You just have to prove that they agreed and that they assisted or promoted this to happen. You don't have to prove that there was a reason for her to do any of those things. All you have to prove is that she did them, that she agreed to do them, that she made it possible for this to happen. So I really, really appreciated that. And then there was even a little bit of Coke bottle snark at the end. And I just want to see, if I can find that because it was great. Let's see. About 4 minutes from now. Let's just do the end of this closing because it's brilliant.
We've heard something about Melanie doing it. She had a financial motive.
Oh, let me share. Sorry.
I'm not here to tell you that Melanie wasn't involved in this.
Oh,
I'm telling you that this defendant was also involved in this.
Sorry. I'm going to rewind and just play that again because this was really important because there was a lot of throwing Melanie under the bus. There was a lot of reference to what Melanie did, but Trina wants to make it clear. This is important, guys.
We've heard something about Melanie doing it. She had a financial motive. And I'm not here to tell you that Melanie wasn't involved in this. I'm telling you that this defendant was also involved in this. When we talk about a conspiracy to commit murder, there can be multiple people involved in that conspiracy. There were multiple people involved in that conspiracy. Melanie Boudreaux is the only one that had the address. So yes, she was involved. But was she it? No. This defendant helped ensure that her brother could help Melanie by killing off her soon-to-be ex-husband, by loaning him the Jeep, by helping make the Jeep available and accessible to fire out of, removing that rear tire, removing the seat, allowing him to put the dark tint on it, and taking it with him. And then providing that alibi over those days while he was gone to help cover up that he was the shooter. I think she also said maybe she's not responsible for what her brother has done. But we know she is responsible. She is a co-conspirator. She is assisting, she is promoting in this crime. We know from the 25th on, she is helping to get the phone, to get ready, to make the Jeep ready, to cover up for her brother, to hide those extra parts, to Google how to even get the Jeep ready, and eventually also trying to figure out what went wrong so they could then determine what to do after. Brandon Boudreaux knew who was involved. He may not have seen who did this. The defendant has tried to explain away the evidence and questioning witnesses, asking if it's possible for a single piece of evidence to mean something other than what everyone knows it means. Is it possible that a Coke bottle broke in the street and one little shard stayed there right where Brandon Boudreaux's Tesla was located when it was shot? A shard that looks just like the glass from his car in the driveway inside the seats. Is it possible that a tire iron made that bullet hole in the Tesla? Is it possible that the GSR in the Jeep is hairspray and fireworks? Is it possible that a Jeep with Texas plates belonged to someone else who wanted to kill Brandon? Is it possible that Alex was in Idaho and called her on October 2nd at 8:02 for those 24 minutes? Don't fall for the defendant's questions about what is possible when the evidence shows exactly what occurred. The only explanation when we look at all of the evidence together is that this defendant conspired with her brother and others to try to kill Brandon Boudreaux. The state asks you to look at all of the evidence, not just the is it possibles, and find the defendant guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Thank you.
And cue the standing ovation,
All right, the defense can give
cue
its
the
closing.
applause, cue the roses being thrown from the stands, cue the banner sash prosecutor of the year being draped across Trina K, cue the robe being put on. I just absolutely loved it. Now, I know none of you want to listen to Lori. That's part of the reason you're here, because these recaps mean I listen to Lori because you don't, so you don't have to, right? So I'm just going to tell you in advance, okay? Trigger warning, I am going to imitate my cousin at this point. Are you ready? Here we go. Family tragedies, blah, blah, blah. Tragedies are tragedies. No one is exempt from tragedies. I'm not even exempt from tragedies. I have studied law because of this situation, and what I've studied about the law and the justice system is going to stay with me forever. And this whole time, even though I've been accused of things I didn't do, I've never been defensive or angry. I don't feel any of those things. I was attacked. I was accused. Blah, blah, blah. Objection, 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 objection. I did not think to cue Sorry, I just realized I was frozen because the Wi-Fi is not that great. I didn't think to count the number of objections that Trina K registered during this entire thing, but there were a couple of moments that were particularly important. She said that when you take the entirety of a person's life and you look at it with an intentionally distorted lens, there was so much more going on. Oh, I lost it when she said that. Sorry, I just threw my notebook because I lost it. There was so much more going on. Yeah, there was a hell of a lot more going on, Lori. You were killing your children. You killed your husband's wife. There was a lot more going on. And yeah, they're looking at this little one microscopic thing. But if they knew the entirety of everything that you had done, you would already be guilty. Like, jury deliberates for 30 seconds and finds murderer guilty. What a shock. That pissed me off to the nth degree. I'm absolutely done. It was one of those moments that I had to look down, take deep breaths. I was very angry. Let me retrieve my notebook. Sorry. I didn't mean to actually throw it, but I was so mad. The thing that makes me so angry is her disrespect for the victims. Yeah, there was a lot more going on, Lori, and all of it was evil, pure evil, 100%. She basically tried to say that there was no agreement, that there was no evidence of any agreement. And this is it's complicated. It's so complex. I'm such a complex person. The case is so complex. Shut up, Lori. The state wasn't there. And I wasn't there. She even said I wasn't there. This is the only time, like before she was like, I was the only one there. Now she's like, I wasn't even there. When I talked to Toss about this after, she was like, yeah, this was exactly the same closing statement that she did on our case. It was basically copy and paste, the same thing. Then she had some fake tears because of course she did. Brandon Boudreaux decided that I was responsible for his family tragedy. I am no stranger to tragedy. You're the one who caused the tragedy, you dumb hoe. Sorry. I just have so much snark. It's kind of late. I've been traveling a long time. I haven't had a lot of sleep. Joe Neal asks this question, and it's a good one. Did you love Lori at one time? I did. And that's what makes all of this so horrible and painful, is that I did love her. I loved her like I love all my family members. I have care and concern for their happiness, for their well-being. I just want them to be happy. And I think I've said this before, nothing made me happier than when all of our family was together, when all the cousins were together, all the aunts and uncles. I did. I loved her. I cared about her. I cared about her health and well-being, her safety. We were close. You know, we wrote letters to each other when we were in middle school and high school. We sent each other our school pictures with a little inscription on the back. You know, silly it might seem, but, you know, every time that we got together, we were singing together and dancing together. And it just, you know, she was my cousin. Cousins are fun. I thought when I was a kid that the Cox household was the fun household. It was where I wanted to go and hang out because we went to Disneyland and Knott's Berry Farm and the beach and all of that. So yeah, she's a big part of my childhood growing up. She was an influential person in my childhood. She was a bridesmaid at my wedding. Other than my sister, she was the first person that I thought to call when I was getting married to be a bridesmaid. So yeah, I used to love her. I really did. And I can't anymore. And so that's why this is me losing my cousin. When Adam called me a liar, I lost my cousin. I've lost half of my family over this stupid ass case. And the thing that sucks is that the ripple effects of the things that Lori has done go out in endless waves. Even though I'm doing my very best to stop them, it doesn't change the fact that she has ruined so many lives. So, yeah, thank you for asking that. But yeah, this has been really painful. And this is, hopefully tomorrow will be the end of this saga. Somebody used a really great word, this inglorious saga of unimaginable waste. For what? Freaking potato burrito man? Just because he paid you a compliment and wrote a trashy teenage novel about his stupid storm? Give me a break. Really? You threw away all those lives? You did all of this for that? Just because somebody paid attention to you? Seriously, screw you, Lori, for not doing the work that it takes to break out of a family system. I get it. you didn't get what you needed growing up. And so you went to go search for it somewhere else. But why would you have to destroy all of these lives just to get what you need? How selfish could you possibly be? The roller coaster is real because I know some of you are a little bit farther behind than others. But I'm sorry. I'm just going to giggle about this for a second. Analytical one, thank you for the super chat. Coffee on me tomorrow for the "you dumb hoe" comment. I'm sorry, you guys. I know I'm all over the place tonight, but it's a lot. And when you say mental illness on display, I hope you're not talking about me because I know I've been all over the place tonight. I'm just letting it all out. This is how I process and this is how I heal. So thanks you guys for being here and supporting me. It is a lot. It's a lot to go through. And the moment that I loved the most is when Trina K had objected and objected and objected. And finally, she just said, I just moved to strike everything the defendant has said at this point. And I please, can we find this moment? Because, okay, Trina K ended 2:30, and this wasn't that far down the road. So let me see if I can see. Hopefully this is right where it is. Am I sharing with you or no? Okay. I always have to check because I forget.
Nobody has all the pieces to this puzzle. It is complex. Like most families, this is a complex issue. And like the state, I was not there.
Okay, hang on a second because
But there is no
I
agreement.
promised that I was going to mute her, but I don't know if the captions are there. There was no agreement, no plan, no gain. I am no stranger to tragedy. The breaking up of a family is a tragedy. June 25th, 2019. Brandon Boudreaux decided that I was responsible for his family tragedy, and I'm really sorry that he feels that way. And then Trina K, bring it.
All right. The
Hang on.
jury is reminded.
Agreement, no plan, no gain. I am no stranger to tragedy. The breaking up of a family is tragedy. On June 25th, 2019, Brandon Boudreaux decided that I was responsible for his family tragedy.
Oh,
And I'm really sorry that he feels that way.
No, Your Honor, I'm going to object again to testimony.
All right. The jury is reminded that what is said in closing statements or closing arguments is not evidence. It is not testimony. The intent of the closing argument is for each side to argue what the evidence shows. Go ahead.
just a little more, I
I
promise.
did and have supported my niece Melanie when she suffered tragedy as a young child and during this terribly difficult time in 2019. We read the text
Fake
from
tears.
Brandon to me on June 25th, 2019, where he claims that he will never stop until he proves that I am responsible. Well, here we are, almost 6 years later, and I'm charged with conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. In order to have a conspiracy, 2 or more people have to make
shut
an
up.
agreement to commit a crime.
There's no such agreement between me and my brother Alex, although I did love my brother Alex.
Your Honor, to testifying.
Sustained.
There is no agreement that was
I'm sorry, Judge Boreski, sustained sounded like so bored at that point.
shown to you between myself and Melanie Boudreaux.
Shush. Although I love Melanie, and I'm going to check. Oh, sorry. This is Trina's finest moment right here.
In 2019, because I was not there.
And I'm going to again object to testifying, and please strike everything the defendant has said.
All right. The defendant is admonished. You cannot argue things that were not admitted into evidence.
The prosecutor wasn't there. Law enforcement wasn't there.
Nobody was there. It didn't even happen. Then she basically goes on to say there's no agreement and that she was basically just cleaning out her garage. She says they have 19 years of my accounts and they're just looking at this tiny little bit. And there was one part where she started the sentence like this and then she went like this. Just strike everything. Okay, and I missed this, so I'm going to play it, and I apologize, you guys, because in the courtroom, it was too quiet. She was not close enough to the microphone. I could not hear what she said. After 6 years, it's time for, and I really want to know what this word is, so I apologize that I'm going to have to play what she actually says here.
The crime. This crime. A conspiracy, an agreement, not cleaning out a garage,
Sorry.
but an agreement to commit murder. You did not see an agreement. You did not hear an agreement. You heard Detective Duncan say that he had spent hundreds of hours going over my iCloud accounts. They have 19 years of my accounts, text messages.
And I'm going to object to
calls.
misstates the evidence and no.
If there was an agreement.
Hold on. The objection sustained. The jury is reminded that they will determine what the evidence did and did not show. Go ahead.
If there
Okay,
was
so
an
we don't
agreement,
have
we
to
would
listen to
showed
it.
you.
It says healing.
There is no
Is that what you're
agreement.
telling me? Okay, good. Because I don't want to listen to it. So after 6 years, it's time for healing. Shut up. That's dumb. All right. I'm going to play Trina K's restatement in its entirety. It is about 6 minutes long. And I think it is absolutely worth it because it was brilliant and masterful. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give the floor to Trina K. She deserves all the roses.
Very obvious,
Whoa,
long
whoa.
plan. She again misrepresents what was told to you.
That's Hori Shallow. Okay, so here comes Trina K.
State wish to give a rebuttal.
Take it away, Trina K.
All right, the state has the burden to prove the defendant guilty, and since they have that burden, they have the right to open and close the argument. Go ahead.
The defendant wants you to think that Brandon has it out for her. She has tried to insinuate that Brandon was involved with working with Detective Pillar for years just to get her. But what you heard was that Brandon has actually been working with law enforcement on multiple investigations, and that in fact Melanie Boudreaux is the subject of multiple investigations. So again, as the defendant sits up here and tries to portray and paint a picture for you of her innocence and sadness and family tragedy, she again misrepresents what was told to you at trial. She tells you there was no plan, but she ignores the facts and the evidence of a very obvious long plan. A plan that started when she began, this defendant, Lori Vallow, meddling in Melanie and Brandon's marriage. And when that marriage was finally ending, this defendant continued to help her cousin, or her niece, Melanie. She continued to aid her. And what we see in every one of these bits of evidence is a core group of people. This defendant, her brother Alex, Melanie Boudreaux, and Chad Daybell. The four of them working together. Do we need to have words, a video? No, we do not. That is why there is that jury instruction on direct and circumstantial evidence. because you look at what is going on here and it screams to you a conspiracy by this defendant, by Melanie Boudreaux, by Alex Cox, and by Chad Daybell to kill Brandon Boudreaux. Every action you see there, the defendant would like you to look at them individually and pretend that they don't all point to what happened on October 2nd. But everything they did leading up to then shows you a way to cover up and prepare for the murder of Brandon Boudreaux. When we talk about a plan and this defendant's actions, the most obvious and screaming piece of information is this defendant holding on to her brother's phone for days, holding on to the 480-351-9120 number for days while her brother is gone with her Jeep, without the rear tire, without the back seat, with a gun with him. That is part of the plan. That is the assisting, that is the promoting, that is the conspiracy that this defendant wants you to pretend doesn't exist. We don't need words. We have actions that are obvious, and they're done by this defendant and her co-conspirators. The state asks you to look at everything together, regardless of how many people want to cry up here, regardless of how many people want to try to testify. This is not evidence. What is evidence is what was presented to you in trial, and each piece of that tells you this defendant is guilty. And so I ask you to find her guilty of the conspiracy to commit murder against Brandon Boudreaux. Thank you.
All right, members of the jury, the case is going to be
Absolutely
shortly, but
freaking
first-
brilliant. Mic drop. Just wanted to stand up and shout. I was so excited. No matter how many people want to get up here and try to cry. Oh, yes. And also, I have highlighted, starred, and underlined multiple investigations. She stuck her foot in the door just a little bit. Just a little bit. You know, kindness grows. I don't think you need to find out what Trina thinks of Lori, because I think we just saw it right there. I think she despises Lori. I don't think that you can anything but despise Lori after that. Masterful. Just masterful. I loved the angry page flip. That echoed throughout the court. I absolutely loved holding on to Alex Cox's phone for days. I loved the cry shaming. Absolutely amazing. So at the end of all of that, only 12 jurors get to deliberate. They use their super scientific method of choosing the jurors. They had the numbers in a little box that they shook, and they drew them out. So juror 3, 16, and 7 were excused. And we're going to have notice of the verdict within 25 minutes. So my plan is to go live tomorrow morning. I don't know exactly what time yet. Court will be in session around 10. I'm actually not going to go to the courthouse. I'm going to stay here and stream from here. And I will not go to the courthouse until they have a verdict. So I'm going to rely on Joe Schmo, my other friends in the courtroom there, to tell me what's going on. I'm not going to wait over there with everybody. I'm going to wait here so that we can go over some more things. I want to go over those handwritten motions where Lori, again, claimed to be the victim because she got yelled at by Judge Boreski, which it wasn't even yelled at. And then I also, I owe my Patreon members an episode about the Reddit emails that came out. So I'm going to do that. And I also have some other people that I think are going to stop by. Maybe we'll have a conversation with. So I'm thinking that I will go live at 10 a.m. Phoenix time so that we can also monitor the, Twitter posts, X posts of Nate Eaton and Justin Lum. And then we'll be able to go through a lot of this. So I know you guys have asked a lot of questions. It's been a long day for me, and I still have web sleuths to do. I'm going there next. And I also need to order dinner because I haven't eaten yet. So Patreon is a separate website. It's patreon.com. My place over there is called the Midlife Revolution. And that's where I do all of my extra bonus content, like singing, playing the piano, cooking sometimes, and sometimes just random thoughts on things and stuff. And sometimes some videos and things like that. This is my post, I think, from earlier today where I shared those memos. I appreciate all of you who are able to support the channel, whether it's just being here and just being a beautiful human and putting snark in the commentary. Yes, we do talk about healing over there a lot as well. Or whether you're able to financially support. I appreciate equally both. Thank you, Robin, for that super sticker. I don't have concerns about number 6 because I don't know him, but Joe Schmo raised concerns about number 6. So I'm going to talk to him about that as well. So guys, thank you again so much for your support, your kindness, your snark. And I do appreciate you being here to support, even if it's not financially. I'm going to drink some of my dinner tonight. I will have a beverage. But I do really appreciate you guys so very, very much. You have no idea how much healing this brings into my life. And I'm excited to meet up with you again tomorrow so we can be on Verdict Watch. And I will see you again very, very soon. In the meantime, enjoy one of my favorite clips.
Are you done? Are you just going to keep